Hello everyone, True Zero Emissions here, seconds after the ending of the last video. I'm trying to keep these short so that they'll upload, or have a better chance of getting some of them uploaded. So I was talking about school in the last video a little bit, and it's interesting how in some countries, I'm not sure which ones, like here we pay a lot of money for school, right? We could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time we finish school, especially like doctors and certain fields of study, right? But in some countries, I don't think education costs anything. I think it's just included. And I've talked with a lot of people that feel that it's really best for everyone when the whole country has access to really good education. And that really does make sense. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. People say, talk about greed and stuff, but I don't know. Or just business. Like, oh, it's just business the way it is. Okay, but what's the goal, though? If the goal is to have the most educated people, then to me, it seems obvious that education needs to be as accessible as possible, right? So, it just seems like it's not a mystery, right? Just like if we want world peace, then educating children at the earliest ages and then continuously throughout their life, but at least all through grade school and college, the idea that working together, worldwide solution-oriented collaboration, is the direction of great value, and I think greatest value, versus, for example, everyone making the more deadly weapon, right? Because this isn't a good example, but would you hand two kids that are fighting each other, would you hand them weapons? It kind of looks like that, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but it seems like to fight is, well, I feel like it's a dead end for everyone. Like it's ultimately at some point in time, it's going to have a bad ending for everyone. And any kind of fighting always hurts both sides. So I was always taught that it's more brave to not fight than to fight. But obviously, if you have to fight, right, if your life's in danger and you have to fight for your life, that's different. But if you don't have to fight for your life and you can avoid the fight, right, that I was always taught that's the bigger thing. That's the bravest thing that could be done. And then understanding is important, right? So why are we talking about all these things when I'm riding my electric unicycle? Well, to me, True Zero Emissions, which is the name of this channel right now, is bigger than just not polluting the air with vehicles. It's like a philosophy of a way of life about, I think it's about worldwide solution-oriented collaboration, and can we work together to build the future today, which is what we do. It's all that we do. And then it's realizing that we are building the future each day. Whether that's choosing to not move forward in terms of reducing pollution, right? I mean, look at Paul Pantone as an example of someone who had a great solution and still does, even though Paul has passed on himself. His son continues the work with the GEAT fuel processor, right? Global Environmental Energy Technology, with over 200 anomalies that it has. Things that are like, wow, it's unexplainable. Like, it's so interesting, right? But what people would complain about, and Paul himself would say this, is that people didn't like him personally. And they go, oh, we don't like him. He's too difficult to work with, or he's too demanding, or he's too picky, or he's asking too much. Or whatever the words are. I mean, don't quote me exactly on that. It's just that there was definitely complaints about him just being too difficult to work with, and so people chose not to work with him. But then the stories that will often be on the internet is like paranoid stories. But when I spoke to Paul himself, there was no paranoid stories in there. What he just spoke of was that, he was strict with what he wanted. And one of the things he said he wouldn't do was sell the idea, because he wanted to make sure people had it. That's why he gave the free plans out. But then what happened, he said, is people made variations of the free plans that could be harmful to people, and they put them all over the internet. And that's what he told me. That's why he said it was so important that people called him directly to work with him. And anyway, I'm just sharing with you what was shared with me directly by Paul himself. But the Geet Field Processor is a great technology, and anyone can experiment with that if they're interested in it. What it does is it breaks down whatever you put in there. So if you put water in there, mixed with gas, for example, and then transition just to water, for example, what are we transitioning to when I say water? Well, we're transitioning to oxygen and hydrogen. Okay, we're transitioning to oxygen, hydrogen, which that's the only thing that burns inside gasoline, right? That's the only thing that burns, not carbon. So I don't know why so much of the internet will say you have to have carbon in the molecule or the fuel will not work. And many chemists have told me that's not true, and they don't know why anybody would say that unless they just didn't understand it, right? But what burns is the hydrogen, right? The hydrogen and oxygen allows combustion. And then there's like these ideas about, oh, well, it takes so much energy to make takes so much energy. Make sure we're recording. It takes so much energy to break the molecule apart that it's not worth it, right? Some people will say that it's not worth it to do that because it takes more energy than you get. Well, anybody ever added up the energy that goes into processing oil into what we call gasoline or petrol? A lot of energy, right? A lot of energy goes into it, prepping that fuel. It doesn't just come out of the ground ready to go. So then my question is, how can we prep water if that's what we want to use? How can we prep the water molecule for combustion if that's what we want to use, or even as a supplement, right? So a lot of people run their engines just off of the water molecule and breaking it apart. They run like lawnmower engines and small engines, but any engine could be run with that, right? Any size, I think, theoretically. Now again, when I say theoretically, I'm talking about taking into account that, like Richard Feynman said, there's enough energy in a cubic centimeter of space to boil all the Earth's oceans. We choose what to do with that energy. Okay, what we have often done is made weapons with it. And those weapons are supposed to be to protect ourselves, like just to protect, right? But just watching lots of YouTube videos and researching what soldiers are saying, they're like, we're not fighting. What they often say is, we're not fighting for what we thought we were fighting for. And then it's like, everybody's like, well, what are we fighting for? Why are we fighting? What is the reason that we're fighting? And then regardless of what those reasons are, what are we doing to have a better plan for the future so that we don't have to continue fighting, right? These are extremely important ideas. Now, I remember in grade school learning about like heroes in the books, right? In the history books and things. All the heroes from the history, all throughout history, right? And it looks like it's really brave and really great to win in a battle. But what I was always asking myself was, where is the philosophy of how children growing up, which is what I was, can learn another way, an alternative to fighting, which hurts both sides, right? Because both sides lose life and both sides are injured badly. So I'm just sharing some ideas. I think to me, these are important things to think about. I think about these things. I can't imagine not thinking about it, because what's the future of the planet, right? What is the future of the planet? And if I want to get into talking about extraterrestrial life, which really is here, including us, I mean, I've read many articles that say that our DNA has, I'm not sure what it is, I think it's our DNA. It's something in our cells is unaccounted for the natural development of this planet. Right, so I've read two different variations of that. One says everyone has alien DNA in them, and the other one says, well, a lot of people do. But the one that said everyone was very thorough. It was very meticulous and detailed. And I could read that if I could find the articles again. I could read that and share that with you. But a lot of stuff on the internet changes. Like a lot of stuff becomes unavailable. Okay, let's see if I can do some turns. This might be pushing things way too fast. I'll do long turn, like wide turns like this. So what I'm doing is I'm telling myself there's no hurry to learn. Take my time. What's important is not getting hurt. Because how long does it take to recover from an injury, right? It takes a while. Sometimes longer than others. Okay, why am I bringing up alien life? Well, because we're all here together, whether we believe they exist or not, right? To me, I mean, people just say, the highest educated people say, it's so obvious that there's life, intelligent life like us, and way beyond us in the universe. It's not even a debate at all. I mean, people can debate it, but it's like, I've watched a lot of documentaries growing up and read a lot about people's experiences and things. I'm not talking about people saying, oh, I'm pregnant from an alien and stuff like that. I don't get into those stories. Like, I watch stuff that, like, where people saw, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I like to know, what is the message they have for us? What are they saying to us? And they're saying things that I could imagine saying to a planet if I was in their shoes. Now, what is their shoes? Their shoes is they don't fight anymore. They live in peace amongst each other. They're looking at us like we're at such a early stage of development with our fighting and the way we, pollute the air, and just the things that we do are indicators of very, very young civilization. It doesn't mean now when I say that and when I hear it and read it, it doesn't mean that we can't change that right away. Like, we literally change it today, anytime that could be changed. But what we seem to do is we seem to blame investment, money, for change. Like, we'll say, oh, we can't change that. We can't change that because we're invested in something else. We have to stay with this other thing. And then we'll discredit, I'm talking about articles and the experts, right? Not always, but a lot of time. We'll discredit the alternative, which is clearly good, but it's like they'll find some way to make it look bad or say that we're not ready for it. An example of that is like battery technology, right? So we use lithium, which is it burns, right? It burns when it reaches the oxygen in the air. But there's alternatives that we haven't used. So we use a technology, this isn't a perfect example, but it is an example. We use this technology, it's like we choose this technology, which is not the best that we have access to. What I mean by that is graphene is a solution. Now, I know the internet says otherwise, but the internet also says you can't run an engine on water. What do you think all these engines are running on? They're running on oxygen and hydrogen. What is water? Do you think they're running on carbon? No. Again, are we burning oil right out of the ground? No, we're processing it. So if you put the same amount of energy in water that we put into oil, see what happens. What I mean is the same amount of processing, right? I've never heard someone say that. This is just how my mind works. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I'm not sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I don't know. I'm just sharing my thoughts. This channel is my journal. Okay, I share my thoughts. So I'm learning to ride this. Imagine taking the wheel off your car, putting pedals on it, putting a motor in the hub, and making the motor also the brake. So you don't have a braking system except the one that is the motor, which is a great brake. It's like the best, right? How big is that motor? So how big is your brake? Yeah, so when people have scooters and they turn off the regenerative braking and they use the little brake pads that come in there, the little itty bitty little brake pads, in my thoughts, I'm like, I want the motor to be my brake because it's much more powerful. And anyone that's turned up the braking system, like on a Dualtron scooter, like a Dualtron Thunder 1, 2, or 3, or the Dualtron Storms, and turn that regenerative braking up all the way, knows how powerful those brakes are if you compare it to turning the regenerative braking off and just using that itty bitty little brake pad that has a little bit of surface area that actually stops you, right? So a little bit of surface area compared to that much surface area, like a big motor. And do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how this looks? And if you want to experience it, try it. And then people on the internet will say, oh, I'm not even charging my battery when I have regenerative braking. I'm going to turn it off. It's a waste. What's the point? And I'm like, well, to me, I never have to change the brake pads on my scooter, which I didn't. I always turn regen all the way up, and you'll have to get used to that because it's very powerful. And you don't have to turn it all the way up. You could choose somewhere in between. Stop recording.